Amazing. Here we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another segment of A Coffee with Chekin. Great to have you here. My name is Stephen Marshall, Head of Sales here at Chekin, and today I am joined by Florian, one of the founders of KeyNest, the key exchange and management platform for touristic accommodation. Florian, amazing to speak with you. How is everything?
Everything is fine. Thank you, Stephen, for having me.
An absolute pleasure. Florian, I'd love for the users that perhaps know a little bit about KeyNest, or perhaps those that don't know anything at the moment. Um, what is KeyNest? Sort of, how did it come about? When was it founded? And what was the idea behind the solution, since it is quite unique when it comes to that selfless, contactless check-in process?
Absolutely. So KeyNest was really born with a need. My co-founder was an Airbnb host back in the day in 2015, and always struggled with the check-in for his guests and how to give access to his flat to his guests. I traveled quite a bit with Airbnb back in the day. And I always had the same issue from having to wait in the rain for an hour for someone to meet me, or I have a story as well, trying to find a key somewhere hidden in a garden late at night. We're both working in private equity consultancy back then, and always had this idea of also creating our own thing at one day, and we were just chatting and about the annoyance of this, and how this sector that is booming and doubling every year doesn't have this sorted. So we really just started by speaking to local businesses to see, what they would think about being sort of reception desks in the city, for example, for their community. And they loved the idea to have people from all over the world come to their establishment, whether it's a coffee place. We also talk to museums or anything really, but to greet people from the US and then from Asia and wherever into their premises and hand over the keys. So we did a lot of research, talked to a lot of potential clients, and found out a lot about how important security is, how important tracking is, etc. So essentially what we did was starting to build a network, and now we have a network of over 5,000 locations. We
Wow.
started with 5 in London, where Airbnb hosts, property managers, real estate agents, anyone really can securely store their keys and then give remote access to whether it's their guest, their cleaner, their contractor, and all they need is a 6-digit code. They will receive the right keys, and the owner of the keys will always be notified at every movement of the keys.
That's really good. So you've seen the need and then built up around that. That's funny you say that, because one of our co-founders, he was an Airbnb host in Seville. Couldn't, take the fact that you had to go to every house, write down all these details, and that's where our first application, our first solution came from. So it started a trending topic of people finding, some tedious manual process that was required, and then saying, you know what, instead of waiting for something, I'm going to go hands-on and I'm going to create that for myself.
Exactly. Usually these ideas are not always, but often the best ones, because you already have discovered a need that's out there, right? And most likely, if you struggle with something, there's a lot of others that have the same problem.
Oh no, definitely. I think that's the best way to learn as well, especially with the up and coming, prop tech market or Airbnb industry. Like you said, when you found it was doubling every year, it was something that, it didn't look like it was going to slow down, and it was like either like we get in now or someone else will do it in the future. That's awesome. And so you founded this company, you started building it out and everything. 2 or 3 years down the line after you started managing everything, what were your experiences? Because it was sort of a hyper growth. What we experienced in the last couple of years is the prop tech, or at least these contactless services, these management solutions really starting to come into fruition. Everything was really hands-on, really manual, really one-to-one. And then people started to realize, well, I can actually get someone to do this for me. What are the biggest changes you've seen, do you think, in the last few years when it comes to short-term rentals and all the different solutions in the market?
For us, it was really interesting to see how much more professional the whole sector got. So when we started, we really didn't know the market too well. So we looked at the use case of an individual Airbnb host, maybe someone having 2 or 3 places, But then we very quickly learned, how professionalized the sector already is, and how many good companies are already operating in it. So we, in the first month, actually even pre-launch, we signed up our first customer with hundreds of apartments. We saw in how much need these companies are, because it's quite easy to manage 1 or 2 apartments. It already gets harder to go to 5. But once you're at 20, 30 and you want to really push the 50, 100, you need to automate, and you need to get more professionalized. And that's what we really saw, that over time, these conversations always got a bit easier, because everyone was ready to scale, wanted to scale, and also wanted to automate things, because at the end of the day, that doesn't only help to scale, but it also improves your service much more, right? You can't do everything manual and then provide the same happiness basically to your landlords when you have 1 apartment or 50, or also to your guests, right? Like when you have 1 check-in a day, yes, you can accommodate somehow, with manual processes, but if you go to 50, 100 check-ins a day or even more, you really need to professionalize. And we saw that development taking off rapidly. It didn't take long after we started and had conversations to really see that every 3 months companies were making another step.
Okay, amazing. And you started to see that growth. Specifically, the main market was starting in London. So how many markets are you in now? Are you completely international?
Yes, so we are in 14 countries across a few continents. So in Europe, the usual markets from Spain, Italy, Portugal, obviously UK is our headquarter, France, where we have an office as well in Paris. But then we're also in the US and Canada, and also in Australia. We're always joking about it, because when we started, we thought it would be quite London focused, and then we had these big ideas going to New York and Paris, and then our first city was actually Portsmouth. But it showed to us, we just wanted to prove that we can be outside of London. It seems a bit silly now, especially people who joined recently, and we hear all these languages in the office, and we're in all these markets. And we were very nervous to even launch in Portsmouth back in 2016. But yeah, that was a success, rapid success actually, which encouraged us to really go internationally.
Amazing. That's great to hear. Everyone gets nervous expanding into international markets, such as myself when we started doing it at Chekin. But then you have that sort of one successful case, and you think, why not start expanding? Why not going into these other markets? And the really cool thing that I love about sort of the prop tech or the property management Airbnb industry is it's a completely international market. No matter where you go in the world, it's not like it's normalized, not like every market is the exact same, but the goal's the same, which is always give the best experience to the guest possible, and then from the host point of view, make it as easy as possible to manage more B&Bs and thus generate more revenue while keeping the guest happy.
100%. Yeah.
So that's always been the main goal.
Absolutely. It helped us as well in the beginning that the sector was already so international. So the customers we work with in London, we had meetings on a monthly basis, hearing from customers, okay, that's nice. We really like working with you in London, but we're also in Paris, we're also in Spain, etc. When are you going to launch there finally? So we got a bit of external pressure as well. But that's what you want to have, right? That you launch in your country and you already have an established network of customers already who are just waiting for you to launch. And yeah, absolutely. That's another development of the sector in general, being so international. There's a few players being focused on one national market, and a lot of them are doing really well and are really going deep. But yeah, absolutely. So many companies successfully managed to launch in several geographies.
Yep, definitely. Did you see any changes, any sort of big adaptations you had to make for KeyNest moving into these markets outside, apart from the language barrier, of course? But were there any sort of hurdles that you guys had to really jump over substantially to be able to launch into international countries such as Paris or even Australia, which is the other side of the world from London?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It was, yes, of course, it was a challenge. But mostly what you need is just have someone in the team who, either speaks local language or has the local culture. Because the differences in our clients is relatively similar. Sorry, not the differences, they're quite similar in that they have this need. And how they're doing it at the moment depends a bit from country to country. So they have their own challenges, but overall, going to us basically gives them all the same benefit from, becoming more professional, automate things, cutting costs, and saving time. So it didn't really matter whether we serve a client in Barcelona or in London. And the difference then comes a lot with finding good partner locations that we work with. Some cafes, bars in Barcelona, they need a different pitch than some other coffees or supermarkets in London or elsewhere. So we needed to adapt a little bit there, but that really came down finding someone who is local, who speaks local language, but then, finds these partnerships for us. It all came down to that.
Okay, no, that's a really interesting answer. Because essentially, it's like you said, it's the same function. What is the host? They need the same thing, but then you just have to adapt to the culture, the way of life there, and how everyone will react to that type of service. Curious question, did you have any sort of pushback from any markets that you thought, right, we're going to go in here, and this type of service perhaps wasn't as accepted or as, an open idea compared to maybe London or some of the other bigger cities?
Very good question. Just trying to think about this. I think what we saw a little bit, but that was only at the beginning, was when we came from London, for example, to Southern Europe. It felt like the London market was already a bit more established. So there were already bigger companies which had a bigger portfolio, etc. And they were a bit more ready to really automate and take the next step. Whereas in Southern Europe, we saw with a few ones, they still had a little bit this fear of, I want to do meet and greet, and going away from that. That changed already actually pre-COVID, but especially during COVID time, that perception has completely changed. Apologies for the light. I hope you can still see me. That perception has changed then completely, because people saw also that their guests prefer much more having a flexible check-in and not having to be met by someone who then shows them in the kitchen, because as soon as they can get in, they can figure that out themselves. But in the initial period, 2018, 2019, we saw a bit more resistance in these, let's call them more traditional markets. By now, countries like Italy, Spain, Portugal, they caught up completely with the UK and France. We don't really see a difference there anymore at all. But back then, we were still perceived as something very new. And, when you spoke to them about our concept and having guests collect their keys whenever they want to, and you don't need to go there, and, you can go from 10 check-ins to 100, we're looked at with wide open eyes first and being like, what do you mean? How would that work in practice? So it was a bit of a challenge in the beginning, for sure.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think that resonates with us as well. KeyNest is an integrator into Chekin, and our solution is completely this automated, contactless experience where, you give that guest that flexibility. I've talked about this on some other podcasts where the goal at the moment is to offer complete flexibility to the guest, but also somehow offering the same or similar experience that sort of that in-person check-in, that face-to-face, that human interaction could offer. And we have to sell that, because it is important, and you have to sort of explain how you can help yourself by automating, how you can help your guests, but also you're giving them much better open quality, stay, vacation, travel options because of that flexibility. So how do you convey that to your users or potential users or people that are interested? How do you explain to them, like, yes, you can offer this, it is a contactless service, but you could also still be offering the same guest experience or a better guest experience? If maybe, I'm not sure if I formulate the question there. So how do you, explain that just by offering this doesn't mean the guest experience is actually going to be deteriorated in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. For some, it's very quick, and it's just a logical question about people's own experience. You just have to put someone into the situation. You fly into Paris, you land at Charles de Gaulle, and someone asks you, when are you going to be at the apartment? Because we want to be there. You say you're there at 5 p.m. But then, you're getting delayed, the flight is landed a bit later, and you're really stressed because you said you're going to be there at 5 p.m. Now you need to message saying you might be a bit later, but you don't really know how late you're going to be, how quick will you be through security? Will you be collecting your luggage? How quickly will you get a cab? And how long will it actually take? Is there traffic? Wouldn't you much more, prefer to just land whenever you land, grab something to eat before if you want to, have a coffee because what's exhausting, buy some water and not stress about the exact time when you're going to basically arrive there. So quite often, the own experience and putting someone into that situation helps a lot. We have had customers as well who, and we really like that, just prefer, they have 100 properties, or even some of one property. Why don't you just start and test it and see your reviews? We'll probably get better. Send direct feedback forms to your guests. And all of these have been very positive. So some of them, we just encourage that, just trial it. If there is a fear, because you really like to see someone in person, scaling and being a bit more efficient might not be enough at this point in time, because there's a worry for guests not liking it much. Just trial it out. We're very confident that while becoming more efficient and save time, you also have happier guests, because it's just the flexibility is really important. We have this check-in problem is our industry, where everyone is lagging a bit behind hotels. You never have to tell a hotel whether you arrive at 5 p.m. or at 7 p.m. and getting nervous, when you're an hour or 2 hours late. It's just logic really that that gets preferred as well.
Yeah, of course. It's good that you mentioned the whole hotel part, because I think what used to happen, and it'd be good to get your thought on that, is short-term rentals. In reality, it's still quite a new industry. We're still evolving. We're still adapting. And what's tended to happen before is when all these solutions came out, all of these property hosts, even if they only had one or two properties that they were renting out for vacation rentals, this type of technology always didn't always seem to be at the frontier for them. What I mean by that is they probably thought it was, oh, this is for large companies. Oh, this is a hotel tech. I can't afford that. That's way out of budget. How am I going to put this type of budget into my next year? And I've only got 3 apartments. But I think what we're seeing now is we're seeing the adaptation of products and integrations really allowing small, medium, and large, of course, property managers find affordable technology that's going to help them in their day-to-day. We used to look at the Hiltons and the Marriotts, and they started innovating, and they started doing these contactless check-ins or these 24-hour check-ins and everything. And we thought, right, so how short-term rental is going to be able to adapt to that? But in reality, everything's a lot more affordable now. There's so many great solutions on the market that's helping these small and medium property managers afford automation, security, contactless check-ins.
Absolutely.
And it's just helping everything in the industry really go boom.
No, for sure. You're seeing that a lot probably as well, for at Chekin as well, that it's an evolution as well. As I said earlier, if you talk to someone with 5 apartments 5-6 years ago, it would have been very difficult to convince to invest in tech already. But that perception has changed completely. And everyone is now looking for a great solution, which helps them, but also help the guests. I think that will even continue. We're not at the end yet. There's still things as an industry we can do better and we can improve. But I think everything is going into the right direction and at very rapid speed as well.
Yeah, definitely. On that topic, where do you actually think the industry is going? Do you have any thoughts for the property management, Airbnb, short-term rental, prop tech industry over the next coming years? Have you had any thoughts on that?
Yes. So this trend of really being able to compete with higher-end hotels is going to continue. So guest expectations will continue to rise. Someone who booked an Airbnb 10 years ago expected kind of, okay, it's not going to be easy. I need to communicate a lot. It will probably be hard to find the place to get in. And then, I'm not really sure what I'm getting into. And that has changed completely. Now the guest expectation is more or less the same as if you book, as you said, the company before, you book a Hilton hotel, you know what you're going to get. And you have a certain expectation that everything goes smoothly. And the room is very clean and it looks exactly as described and has everything you need. And that's going to continue. And the short-term rental industry for sure needs to catch up with all these expectations. And as I said, we're in a very good way with the professionalism of all actors, making sure the clean is up to date, the tech is there, that the check-in is organized, and the communication is there as well. If someone has a problem with the apartment, there's different partners we work with as well. The fix, it takes a few hours and not like a few years ago. Oh, thank you very much for reporting this problem. We'll try to look into it after your stay. Because I guess, if a boiler is broken or if the heating doesn't work, it needs to be fixed immediately, or there needs to be an alternative that will be arranged, like a hotel would do. And I think that's really the direction we take, that the short-term rental industry gets to a point where it's standardized to a point that guests are very trusting and really like the idea of staying in a short-term rental because they know the quality that they get. And let's face it as well, it has so many advantages as well, right? So we have the same standard while still providing superior experience.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. It is starting to feel a bit more like a hotel experience because it's all inclusive. You know that everything's going to be taken care for. And it's also what we're seeing now is the upsellings and experiences,
Yes.
With these online check-in platforms. Like when you used to go to a hotel, would you like breakfast in the morning? Would you like a wake-up call? Would you like this? And now you go to an Airbnb and would you like a welcome pack? And can I prepare this for you? And hosts are really good. It's really good because they're taking advantage of this to build a lot of revenue upon each and every booking because it's really important. But it's also giving that guest that unique opportunity to do some experiences they maybe not have thought of in the area. Traditionally, you go to an Airbnb, you go to Seville, and then you go, for example, in Seville, and then you go into Google things to do in Seville, and then from there you would work it out. But now we're really becoming these hosts that are also tour guides, that are also experience providers, that are also giving them the maximum, the maximum experience to their guests, so they can have everything prepared for when they arrive. And I think that's Absolutely. An amazing sort of evolution because when I went to Airbnb last, I realized I could get tickets to go to concerts in the area. I could get guides, and I was thinking, this is great. I don't even have to, I'm not even there yet. And I've got my whole itinerary planned out because I know where I'm going. I know how to get the keys. I don't have to wait for anyone. And then I've got a restaurant booked.
Absolutely.
The evolution has been, a complete success, and really looking forward to see what it looks like in the future, how we start getting the quality of service and the experiences offered to the guests in the short-term rental industry up to the same level of standards as 4 or 5 stars hotel. We're already seeing it, but of course there's always going to be a further push on that, which is really exciting.
Absolutely. And then across several continents, right? That's the challenge as well. Someone being able to provide the same level of service and quality in one country or one city, to replicate that is another challenge. It's possible, and we're seeing people doing it very well. But yeah, that's hopefully going to continue to be that way.
Definitely. On the topic of contents, are you guys, or will KeyNest be in any new emerging markets anytime soon that people can look out for?
We're always at the lookout to go into other markets. It's often customer led, as I said. So often by a new customer or by an existing customer who has a portfolio in some city or some country we're not at yet. We would always be open to go anywhere. We also have a software solution, which is a pure SaaS product. Which is more or less for the key management. So it tracks the keys going in and out of an office, where we already have quite a few clients in South America, in Asia. And it's also a nice gateway for us to learn a bit more about these markets and have a potential launch at one point. We don't have anything concrete for now, but as things are going, it took us 2 years to leave the UK, but then another 2 years to launch in 10 more countries. I'm pretty sure we'll see a few more launches in a few more geographies soon.
I'll be keeping my eye out. I'm sure as soon as there's a demand there, I'll be seeing KeyNest in all these different markets. It'll be amazing to watch the expansion. So you said, as soon as someone asks for it, we're in such a good industry that we can go, okay, let's look at that international market. I'm pretty sure we can go there. Exactly. Amazing. Florian, I've had such a great chat. If anyone wants to get in touch with KeyNest and learn a little bit more about the service, where could they find you?
Personally, just contact me on LinkedIn. I'm very reachable there. Anything about KeyNest, either go to our website, chat with our friendly team, or just send us an email. All the contact details are on our website as well.
Fantastic. If anyone would like to know more about the integration that Chekin offers with KeyNest to completely automate and digitize 100% the guest registration and check-in process, please feel free to get in touch. Florian, I've had an amazing chat. Thank you so much for joining me for another segment of A Coffee with Chekin. It was great to understand your thoughts and your experiences within the tourism industry, especially since you've sort of built this business from the 2015 boom era all the way to it is now. And we really look forward to working together and seeing the expansion in the future.
Similar. Great chat. Really enjoyed talking to you, and yeah, great working with your team as well.
Amazing. Perfect. Right. Florian, thank you so much. We will speak soon. Everyone, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this segment, and we'll see you in the next one.
Cheers, Steve.
Cheers.